Good morning, everybody. This is Lindsay Huddles from SPS back in the building for another Monday Motivation. Whoa, after a great weekend for me personally, SPS, it is 3 days of hard work and for great causes. Got to spend some time with the River Rouge Panthers. There was a Panther versus Panther experience going on over there. Shout out to Dr. Derek Coleman for welcoming SPS in to cover that game. It was a great experience over my good friend Brandon Baird, who I got to see yesterday, when the UPrep Panthers took the center stage, that is, with U of D Jesuit. Shout out to Coach Donnelly. Shout out to my guy Ray Hatcher. His son is over there as well at U of D. We had a great experience. And then right there on Saturday night, oh my goodness, the HBCU NPHC night, the annual night with the Detroit Pistons. Had a great time out there partnering with the Pistons. SPS has definitely leveled up. That was a great experience. Shout out to Cletus Lewis Jr., head of public relations, for bringing me in to be a part of that. Shout out to Stephen Welch, the vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Detroit Pistons. Awesome young man representing the city of Detroit, DePort's High School, doing great things in that space. And shout out to the original bad boy, Ricky Mahorn, if you really know what's going on. Also referenced as Derek Mahorn. They don't even know. Had a great sit down with him, and he talked about his experience from poverty to not even knowing that Hampton University was a black college when he got down there in the late 70s, and how he had a major impact on the sport in the world. And he shared some great things, and believe me, Rick and I will be getting together in the very near future to talk some more. But all those things are on my social media platforms. But what is today's Monday motivation? Before I get going, let me say good morning to Michelle Mimi Watkins. Always gets me excited to see you, and appreciate your support. Michelle, my topic today, and I got to say, this is a trigger warning. I was careful thinking about this. I didn't just come up with this topic in a silo. That's an inside joke for a friend, but my point being is, don't be cheap. Lindsay, what are you talking about? Don't be cheap. Well, if you know me, you know that my practice is all rooted in mindfulness, and also being able to focus on being non-judgmental. This is not to judge anyone and their financial status. I sit here as a descendant of a slave in America, so there are so many different financial routes my life could be taken, and we all know in many cases, for African Americans, we are still first generation in so many cases. So if you know me, you know what I'm trying to do with my message. You know it's not to be taken as an offense, but I do want to have a very distinct conversation about not being cheap. Now, where are you going with this, Lindsay? Where is this going to end up? First of all, being cheap makes us all short-term thinkers when you say being cheap. And I must say, in this world where some people may not be lettered, may not have the degree, or as they say, the fancy degree or the PhD I'm still pursuing. You got the phone, man. Google the word, look it up, and look at those elementary words to get a clear idea of what this word means. So what is the meaning of being cheap? The real meaning of cheap, costing very little. Something that's low in price, inexpensive, a cheap dress, for example, or cheap shoes, or whatever it may be. But what I'm trying to say, when you look at the definition of something that costs very little, well, if something costs very little, what do you expect to get out of it? How can you expect a mammoth outpouring or opportunity to come from little effort? So, just to be clear, and maybe I can give you something to walk away with, we can define cheap versus frugal. Now, first of all, being frugal or not being wasteful, you can do things like buy off-brand items. We understand that. We can live with everything not being from Saks Fifth Avenue. Thrift store shopping, which is actually kind of popular. People go through thrift stores and they pick up on things, or you can hit the TJ Maxx of the world. Use coupons while you search for deals. Groupon has made a lasting impact, man. Groupon put me on some golf courses up north and in some beautiful places I probably wouldn't have been in just coming out of pocket. Keeping old technology until it dies. You don't necessarily have to get the brand new version of the latest technology. You know how that goes. Drinking at home versus at the bars. Well, if you do partake in adult beverages, hey, you go pay a whole lot less if you buy that drink at home compared to going to get in at the bar. And valuing your time, and that's one thing you can't even play with. But then we talk about this being cheap part, not leaving tips. I'm just shaking my head. You know you can't see my face. Avoiding paying when it's your turn. Sucker, you want to slide out all the time when it's time for you to pay. And this is male or female. And this is not coming off a 3-day weekend where I had a great time with my frat brothers. Shout out to the bros. Had a great time with my friends. And this has no reference to anything that I experienced within the last 48, 72 hours. So if somebody feels some certain kind of way, keep it moving. Relying on free rides. We know gas ain't cheap. $5 for gas don't work no more nowadays either. Skimping on essential products like hygiene products. Now, I'm not even going to go there. Keep yourself together. And taking all the free stuff even if you don't need it. But you see that when you start being cheap, you notice that the cheap part normally has more of an impact on other people. Not paying the bill, not leaving a tip, all these things. But what I'm trying to get you to understand, and this all comes from either the headlines or personal experience. Well, let's talk about the headlines. Let's talk about the Beyonce Renaissance Tour and how people are losing their mind about the idea that now the most highly decorated Emmy artist ever, referring to Grammy Award winning ever artist, and Beyonce is charging these exorbitant prices for her brand and her tour. I ain't mad at her, but this is what the headlines say. Beyonce better price those tickets like someone who told people to quit their job last July. That's funny. Got a comment right here. My brother Kevin Marshall with me in this morning. Good morning, brother. I'm talking about not being cheap. You got to make an investment. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. But Beyonce is most definitely out of touch with her fans. As one person put, these prices in this economy in a recession, and then you have to register 3 times, sell a kidney on the black market. It's just too much. And that's funny. Like, I would even pay that for Michael Jackson, probably, but LMFAO. We know what that means. I already seen Beyonce, so maybe that's why I feel the way. Plus, these economic times, I can't fathom paying for that for a dang concert. This one right here said, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the Beyonce tickets I can find. The courage to stay within my budget and the wisdom to know the difference. Hey, that's probably the best one right there. Then, me trying to figure out how I'm going to go see Fall Out Boy and Beyonce tickets and pay my rent and other bills. Well, the reality is that we all live with some form of financial constraints. I get that. But what I'm trying to talk about is that for the individual, male or female, who may be a diehard Beyonce fan, you got to make it happen. You cannot limit yourself to a cheap mindset if it's something you want. Now, am I saying that this should be a consistent lifestyle? Chad Ochocinco, Kevin, you know about Chad Ocho, who was known for being one of the cheapest NFL athletes ever. He wore fake diamonds. He bought the off-brand stuff. And he said he saves 83% of his NFL fortune. That's awesome. But my point being is, I bring up someone like that because he says, you can't live that lifestyle all the time. I'm not telling you to go out and try to live an ultra premium lifestyle all the time. But let's be honest, this Beyonce concert, for those who are interested, it's going to be a once in a lifetime experience. And in many cases, got Mo Christian in the building. Good morning, Mo. How you doing, dear? Thanks for checking in. And I'm talking about not being cheap. And what I'm getting at is this. We could talk about Beyonce and the exorbitant price for her tickets, but she came up from the mud, and she's at a point where she's one of the most impactful artists in the world. And that is what she chooses to do for her brand. And people are saying, well, if she's not looking out for her fans. It's up to her fans to look out for her and step up to where she is. Because the reality is, that's not going to change. And let me tell you my personal experience and what this is rooted in. Everybody know these guys? The OJs, the Backstabbers. Smile in your face. Don't talk about my singing. I sing with pride. It may not be in key, but I sing with pride. I remember I made the decision years ago when I started my business to take a first-class flight. First-class flight to Vegas. And it was after I transitioned from corporate America. I took a buyout, so I did have some cash. Because in many cases, we always got some cash. We always got something else we got to do with it. And I made a decision. I said, man, this is my time, man. I'm like Chad, fake it till you make it. I feel you, Kevin. Yeah, Chad is not trying to be out here blowing it because you can't do it like that. So I told myself, I said, I think it's important I get ready for a first-class flight because I want to know what that experience is going to do for me. See, when you make the decision not to be cheap, when you make the decision to place value on an experience, it's going to come at a cost. And in many cases, you are not going to be always aligned with everybody in your circle to say, yeah, I'm ready to put that bread down too. This is for you, for what you're trying to do for a life-changing experience. And I'm glad I made the decision. My dad, being a former airline employee, when I was in high school, I flew first class. I flew first class down to Morehouse, Mo, to have a meeting with Sterling what was Sterling last name? It was Sterling Anderson. I want to say he was the head of admissions. So I flew on my dad's company experience and, my shirt and tie and got down there and got admitted into Morehouse. But as an adult, I made a decision to make this investment this one time because I wanted to say, what is this experience going to get me? Yeah, it cost so much more than a regular ticket. And it definitely wasn't Spirit Airlines, and all that. That's right. So when I did pay for that first class flight, guys, to go to Las Vegas for a conference on sports and philanthropy that turned out to be great, I remember the chair looking just like this setup right here. I don't know if I got offered champagne. No, I know I got it. I probably didn't drink the champagne. I don't know what that may have been. But my point being is, sitting in first class in front of me, when I got there, of all people, going back to the OJs, and that it was Mr. Eddie Levert himself. That's right. Eddie Levert came and sat down right in front of me. He sat down right in front of me, and he was having a conversation with the lady that was sitting equal to where this gentleman is sitting right now, and I was in the seat behind him. The lady finally moved over and asked him, she asked him, what do you do? He said, I'm a singer. I sing. And he was real low-key about it and real humble, but also realizing there may have been a cultural disconnect where she wouldn't even know who he was. So when he downplayed it and said it, I proudly interrupted Kevin. I proudly leaned in, Michelle, and put my head in between the seats. I said, no, ma'am, he's a legend. And I gave Mr. Eddie Levert all props that he was due. Needless to say, that led to a great conversation between he and I as we got off the plane. It actually was during the time of the tragedy of Trayvon Martin. And at the time, I think the media was calling the perpetrator, George Zimmerman, a white Hispanic. And that term was very unique because I don't think that term had been used. So he and I had a great dialogue about that. My cousin hit me up and was like, hey, man, you got to get a picture with him. And that picture is long gone. But my point being is that experience for me paying for first class put me in contact with Eddie Levert. And he and I walked from, because he was going to perform in Vegas. He has a show in Vegas. He and I, and actually the irony of it, thank you, Mo. The irony of it is that we were delayed getting off the plane, not delayed getting on. So me and him sat in the first class cabin talking for a long time, to the point where he talked about his relationship with Roland Martin. He even talked about how he was kicked off of Facebook 2 times, that when he finally decided to get on social media, because there were 5,000 people waiting for him, the Facebook algorithm looked at it as being a cheat code, like there was no way in the world someone can have 5,000 people already waiting on them. Well, they didn't understand the legend concept and how our community hold people up. So what am I getting at? Because I wasn't cheap, those few $100s or whatever I may have spent, even if it was $1,000 more I spent for that ticket, that wouldn't have changed my life right now. Now, somebody can come on and say, well, you could have took that, you could have invested into some stock. That's cool. But I got to meet Eddie Levert, and he got to know me, and we had a great conversation that to this day, if I went to him, saw him, and really stressed and pressed and reminded him, I could come back to that moment. So what am I getting at? When you're cheap on things, it takes away from the opportunity to have a great experience. So I don't want you to go into the world thinking that I'm supposed to live this Beyonce ticket lifestyle every day. But go into the world saying, if this is something that's important to me, if this is something that I can see as life-changing, be willing to make the investment yourself. Be willing to put that time in to be able to get this opportunity to do something like that. I just want you to know that cheap and frugal people both love to save money, but frugal people will not do so at the expense of others. Also, don't do this at the expense of yourself. Don't say to yourself or block something out in your mind, or like these memes are saying about the Beyonce tickets, to say, oh, this is totally beyond me. There may be things you have to do to stretch yourself to get there. And lastly, and if things are so bad and so tight all the time, you may have to change your mindset from more of a poverty mindset, in the sense that there's nothing that you can't have. If it's something you want and you feel you're deserving of it, you should better do what you need to do to make it work. Now, do you hurt others to get it? No. Do you lie, steal, or chill to get it? No, I'm not endorsing that. But I don't want anyone to be within hearing my voice, and there's something they want to do that can have an impact in their life, and they not want to do it because society says it's too expensive to do. We all are adults. We all are capable of making things happen. We all are capable of creating our own resources. So whether it's you getting ready for this Beyonce concert or saying to yourself, you know what, I'm going to save my money, because the next time something like this comes up, I want to go. So maybe this is something where you can have a resolve and look at the world differently as far as what's important to you and what you want. So with that being said, that message on my heart. I want to encourage people to follow their dreams, to enjoy their life. And the last thing is that we don't even know what's promised. We go through life with this concrete mentality that all this stuff is supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen. But it doesn't always happen like that. So with that being said, I want to wish you guys the best. I'm glad you were able to come and listen to this platform, and hopefully it can keep you motivated. But lastly, don't be cheap. Life is too rich, and you don't need to be limiting yourself and your opportunities by having that mindset. Tino comes in and says, good morning. Tino, we're going to sign off today and get ready to go on and have a great day, a great week, a great life. And I appreciate you guys' support. Lenz Hells on SPS. See you guys next time. Peace.